I want you to watch the moment that Trump almost slips up and says something derogatory about VP Harris, but catches himself. And there's been a lot of speculation over the past few months that Trump is on the verge of saying a specific derogatory term. And listen, I want to approach this with some sensitivity because God knows that Donald Trump refuses to, but I do believe that every single day we inch closer and closer to Donald Trump slipping up and hitting a new low on stage out of pure desperation. I've aligned an array of clips today that show Trump almost slipping up or show Trump hinting at his instinctual racism over the past few weeks, and hopefully by the end of the video you can see where I'm going with this. Now again, it might be uncomfortable for a white dude to talk about Donald Trump almost dropping a slur on stage, but it goes beyond that. We know that Trump is racist, but this is about basic human decency. We know for a fact that over the past few weeks he has called Kamala Harris a quote bitch. He's called her the R word. The other day he was talking about black presidents versus white presidents. You know, we'll go through all of this. Make sure you drop a like, drop some blue hearts, and let me know before we start the video. Do you think it's realistic for Trump to slip up and say some sort of slur on stage? Let me know what you think. So to lay the groundwork, before we get into Trump dropping derogatory remarks, I want to show you this clip. Newsmax showed these two clips. One of Donald Trump during an interview accusing the Biden administration of withholding aid, and then another one of Trump during his rally yesterday of him threatening to withhold aid. Just watch these two clips and notice how hypocritical they are back to back.
But North Carolina really got hit. I'll tell you what, those people should never vote for a Democrat because they held back aid. They were so bad. But
and we'll say, Gavin, if you don't do it, we're not giving you any of that fire money that we send you all the time for all the forest fires that you have.
Say it with me. Every accusation is a confession. It is all projection with Donald Trump. He says in this first clip that Democrats would withhold relief aid for political purposes, when hours later he is saying that he will withhold aid for political purposes when it comes to Gavin Newsom. He cannot stop hitting new lows. I also want to show you this insane clip of Donald Trump and his allies in Butler constantly using apocalyptic rhetoric, implying that Democrats want to assassinate Trump. Just watch this, and it reeks of desperation.
Enemy from within, and there's an outside enemy. And if you're smart, the outside enemy is not going to be a problem. Russia, China, North Korea. We're not going to have a problem if you have a smart president. If you have not such a smart president, then it's a problem. But we have an enemy from within, which I think is much more dangerous than the outside enemy.
First, they tried to silence him. When that didn't work, they tried to bankrupt him. When that didn't work, they tried to jail him. And with all the hatred they have spewed at President Trump, it was only a matter of time before somebody tried to kill him.
Who's they? Who is they? I don't...
And then, guys, they tried to kill him. They tried to kill him. And it's because the Democratic Party, they can't do anything right. They can't do anything right. You see it this week in the FEMA response in North Carolina, and in Georgia, and in South Carolina, and in Florida.
This is a pivotal moment for our country. And I don't even have to tell anybody that here. We can all feel it. This is no longer a fight between Republican versus Democrat, left versus right. It is good versus evil.
Okay, so just listen to the broader rhetoric being used here. Donald Trump starts it off by saying that there is an enemy from within. And then JD Vance says they tried to kill him. They tried to jail him, clearly talking about the Democratic Party. And then Eric Trump gets on stage and continues that apocalyptic rhetoric. And then Lara Trump genuinely says it's good versus evil. My broader point is here, the Republican Party reeks of desperation right now, whether it's making Democrats out to be the complete enemy of everybody, the enemy of humanity, or whether it's lying about FEMA aid for political gain, or even blocking Langford's bill. And this brings me on to the main story of today. Could the desperation get so bad that Donald Trump says a slur that we have not heard him say in public before? I want to show you this clip of Donald Trump just 1 or 2 days ago saying, would you rather want a black president or a white president? It's just a weird way. It's a very weird way to talk about Vice President Kamala Harris.
Would you rather have the black president or the white president who got $1.7 billion off the price? I think they want the white guy.
I would much rather have the black president who had the most tie-breaking votes out of any vice president in history. She was a district attorney, an attorney general, a senator, a vice president. She shadowed Biden for 4 years. Could you be more qualified? Could there be anybody more qualified to be the first woman president or to be a president, period? Now, this brings us on to the past few days. We've gotten reports that Donald Trump called VP Harris the R word. Trump made offensive remarks about Harris's mental acuity at dinner with donors. Former President Donald Trump called Vice President Kamala Harris, quote, retarded while attempting to convince top Republican donors to pour more money into his campaign, the New York Times reported Saturday. According to the Times, the former president's offensive remark came during a dinner with donors at his penthouse apartment last month. Among the donors present were Trump's former education secretary, Betsy DeVos, and her husband, along with hedge fund manager Paul Singer. I mean, these are the people in charge of our education. VP Harris has raised $1 billion since entering the race, and that is causing Donald Trump to be desperate. I just want to say, if Barack Obama or if Joe Biden or if Kamala Harris ever said the R word regarding a Republican, if you flip the script, they would never forget that. In fact, they would blame Trump's assassination attempt on Democrats using the R word. But Donald Trump has free reign to use as much apocalyptic inflammatory rhetoric as he wants, and nobody cares. This is not a word you should ever call anybody else. You should never use this word. I very clearly just used it to quote Donald Trump, so please don't get mad that I'm quoting Donald Trump in a news article saying the R word, but you should never use this, period, but especially not in politics. If you are a leader, or a leader, in quotes, that somebody looks up to, the last thing you should do is be calling people slurs. But then again, Donald Trump also called Kamala Harris a, quote, bitch multiple times. The former president's team denied the remarks, yet this wouldn't be the first time he's used this slur when referring to women. People close to Donald Trump did confirm that he referred to VP Harris as a, quote, bitch repeatedly, per reporting from the New York Times based on two people who heard the remark on different occasions. Of course, Stephen Chung denied the remark, saying that is not language President Trump would use or ever use. Yeah, okay, whatever, Stephen Chung. Yet, Trump has used this gendered slur to talk about women or benefited from its use throughout his career. And he didn't shy away from that language in 2016 when running against Hillary Clinton, selling shirts that said, Trump that bitch. And this brings me on to another clip where I genuinely think Trump almost slips up on stage and says some sort of slur or the word bitch. And this kind of ties everything together. So what have I illustrated so far? The Trump campaign is hitting a new low in terms of desperation. They are talking about the enemy from within and evil. They are grifting harder than they ever have before. Trump is apparently slipping up and saying the R word and saying bitch behind the scenes. And now we have a clip of Donald Trump almost saying it out in public, almost slipping. Just watch.
I think the other one asking the question is dumber than Kamala, so that's like, she's a dummy. I watched her over the years. That is one dumb woman. Sorry. I'm sorry, women. She's a dummy.
He almost said dumb bitch right there. Just watch. He almost says it. You can see the way his lips form for the B.
That is one dumb.
You see it right there. You see it right there. His lips form. And honestly, I feel like if he would have done that, that would have opened the floodgates for more slurs, because what would his fans have done? They would have immediately cheered, they would have mirrored that rhetoric, and Republicans would have endlessly run defense. You know that Sean Hannity would say, well, she deserves to be called a dumb you-know-what. You know Tucker Carlson would have run defense, and then that would have been the new bottom that they've hit. And then Trump could just run away with it and say whatever slur he wants, and the Republicans would endlessly defend him. I want to pose a hypothetical question to you guys. If Trump did drop the N-word on stage when talking about VP Harris, do you think that people like Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson would continue to defend him and say that was justified? I genuinely think that they would. I think that Donald Trump could do anything. He could shoot someone on Fifth Ave, as he said, and they would endlessly continue to defend him. Here's Donald Trump in California promising them the world, saying they're going to have so much water they won't even know what to do with it, something to that effect, which is a disgusting thing to hold above the heads of a state that has been in a drought.
Remember what I said, California? You're going to have so much water, you're not going to know what the hell to do with it. They're going to call me, remember about winning, when I used to do this about winning? They're going to call me in the White House, and they're going to say, sir, please, please, we have too much water. We're flooding. Please, sir, please, we have too much water. Right now, you don't have any water. Artificial. It's artificial. Sir, please, could we see you? We have far too much water.
How is he going to do this? Is Donald Trump the one who can control the weather now? This is genuinely him using a salesman-like tactic, but on a national scale, which is what he's been doing for a decade. He uses these repetitious phrases. He promises to flood California with water. There's going to be so much water. Genuinely, how would he do that? Here's another clip of Donald Trump in a Fox News interview with Maria Bartiromo, where he's asked about FEMA money, and he straight up lies about it like usual.
Do you believe that they used money from FEMA and gave it to the illegal immigrants, because the White House is saying that that was misinformation as well?
No, it came out from there, and everybody knew it, and it was released from them. Then all of a sudden, a week later, they come out with a different scenario. And they have so many different pots of money, they just, it just melds. Nobody knows it. Nobody has any idea. That group has no idea what's happening.
Okay, number one, the makeup is getting worse and worse as the time goes on, or maybe it's the lighting, or both. What is with this lighting and terrible makeup? He looks bad. And number two, what he's saying is a complete lie. There are two different budgets for FEMA in Congress. One is meant for natural disasters. One is meant for immigration. Congress needs to approve money, allocate money towards either of these funds, and Donald Trump is trying to confuse people into thinking that both of these pots are getting mixed up and they're pulling from the natural disaster fund to give to immigrants. That is not how it works at all. It's a lie. Just like the $750 loan is a lie. It's not a loan, and it can go up to $40,000 if you need more assistance. I mean, Maria Bartiromo is complicit at this point in lying to Americans who need help, who are in a time of need, and it's honestly pretty disgusting. And this brings me back to a broader point that I've been making lately, and it's that people won't understand that they're being tricked if they don't understand the underlying civics at play. So for example, how do we expect people to understand that the fake elector scheme was bad, Donald Trump's fake elector scheme, if they don't know how the Electoral College works in the first place? To bring that to here, how do we expect them to know that Congress has two different budgets for different disasters, for immigration or natural disasters, when they don't even understand the three branches of government or how Congress interacts with each other? I mean, most Americans probably couldn't even tell you who the House is being controlled by right now, so how do we expect them to understand that Republicans are holding stuff up in Congress? That is my broader point here. Here's another clip of Donald Trump talking to Maria Bartiromo, talking about the Iran nuclear deal. Just
nuclear facilities now with regard to Israel. And, you said that you think that Israel should, in fact, hit Iran's nuclear facilities. Isn't this dangerous to be talking about impacting nuclear facilities?
You can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Here's the story. When I left, Iran was broke. I said to China, you can't buy oil, and if you buy 1 barrel of oil, I'm not doing any business with you in the U.S. You're shut out. We're going to go cold turkey, which a lot of people say, let's do that anyway. And I said, in addition to that, anything that gets through is going to have 100% tariff. And Japan and others and China said, we'll pass. And Iran was doing almost zero business. And they were broke and ready to make a deal. Now they have $300 billion.
Because Donald Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal that disincentivized Iran from making nuclear weapons. There's more to the clip.
Took all the sanctions off, and they're the ones that are sponsoring all the terror. Took all the sanctions off, took everything off, and it's too bad. I want them to be.
Well, if you get back in, are you going to go back to maximum pressure on Iran?
I can't tell you that, and I'll tell you why.
He can't tell us anything because he has no plans.
I think it's so bad to tell a broadcaster, and you're a good one, a journalist, I don't want to say what I'm going to do in a negotiation, because you can't negotiate that way.
It's really not that hard. It's not that difficult. First of all, let me just say, when Donald Trump pulled us out of the Iran nuclear deal, that allowed Iran to move closer to having nuclear capabilities. And Donald Trump also seems to be confusing actual nukes, nuclear weapons, and nuclear facilities that Iran has to potentially build nuclear weapons. But the thing is, Donald Trump's strategy of not revealing any of his foreign policy on camera is total bunk. For a few reasons. First of all, because he has no problem showing documents to people behind the scenes, showing people special plans behind the scenes. The reason why he's saying that he doesn't want to talk about a plan is because he has no plan. Vice President Kamala Harris is a prime example of what you do when you want to take a strong stand. Every time she's asked about Ukraine in a public interview, she says, in a very matter-of-fact, strong way, that Russia needs to pull out. Ukraine will not cede any land, that Vladimir Putin is a dictator who is trying to grab land, and we cannot allow that to happen because we are the leader of the world right now. So, my broader point here is that when Donald Trump says, oh, I can't give my plan, or else it's giving up secrets, he's lying. He has no problem giving up secrets, he just has no plan. Here is a clip of J.D. Vance being pushed again on whether or not Trump won the 2020 election. I have more clips of Trump after.
And I want to end with this. In interview after interview, question after question, and in the debate, you refused to say that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election.
Yep.
So I'm just going to assume that if I ask you 50 times whether he lost the election, you would not acknowledge that he did. Is that correct?
Martha, you asked this question. I've been asked this question 10 times in the past couple of weeks.
Because he won't answer. Sorry to pause, but he won't answer. So yes, you're going to keep being
Of course,
asked.
Donald Trump and I believe there were problems in 2020. You haven't asked about inflation.
No, I'm sorry. Let's stick to this. I know.
The American people want us to talk about how to make their lives better. They don't want us to.
Why won't you say that?
Because, Martha, I believe that in 2020, when big tech firms were censoring American citizens, that created very serious problems. And by the way, Martha, you're a journalist. You represent the American media. Look at the polling on this. A lot of Americans feel like they were silenced in the run-up to the 2020 election. That is such a bigger issue. That fundamental problem than me and Donald Trump talking about it. And unfortunately,
Martha,
I
don't understand why you won't just say it if you believe it.
Won't just say what? That I think the 2020 election had some problems? I've said that repeatedly.
Okay, so I'm just going to zoom out for a second here. When he says, quote, the 2020 election has some problems, it's a very slippery way of getting around the fact that Donald Trump claimed there were millions and millions of illegal votes and dead voters placed in specific key swing states. That is a very big claim. That is why it's called the big lie. Beyond that, Donald Trump tried to enact John Eastman's unconstitutional theory. Donald Trump tried to leverage his position as the president of the United States to pressure election officials across the country, and when all of that failed, he held a rally on January 6th to create confusion and disrupt the certification, the peaceful transfer of power. So when J.D. Vance says, I don't know why it's important, yeah, of course, there were some problems, he's skirting around the real problem, which is that Donald Trump lied about everything. Let's go back to this interview with Donald Trump and Maria Bartiromo. They talk about the Committee for a Responsible Budget.
Because you've said you want to eliminate taxes on tips, eliminate taxes on Social Security, on overtime pay, ending the double taxation of Americans living abroad, a proposal to make car loans interest tax deductible.
That was said.
You said that in Detroit. You even introduced this 15% corporate tax rate for companies who produce in America and hire American workers. But how will you pay for it? The Committee for a Responsible Budget says your plans will increase the debt by $7.5 trillion.
But they don't know.
The Wall Street Journal said that your plans will increase the debt and deficits more than Kamala Harris's.
Trump meekly whispers, they don't know. They don't know anything. Yeah, Trump, you're the one that knows. I'm sure you did the studies.
If I do this, you're going to have car companies coming back to the country because of the taxes and the tariffs. The tariffs will protect them when they come in, so they will protect from other companies coming in, because if the other companies don't come in, they're going to have to pay massive tariffs, and that's it.
That is not how it works at all. Let's take an example that Donald Trump has used. He said that he wants to place a 200% tariff on John Deere while placing a 60% tariff on Chinese companies, which makes it easier for Chinese companies to sell product at a cheaper price. It makes them more competitive and they can dominate the market. Meanwhile, these American manufacturers can't produce anymore. I mean, they can't sell anymore because it's so expensive. Donald Trump wants to destroy these businesses. He has no clue what he's talking about, and it also kind of drives me crazy that he is held on an equal platform as Vice President Kamala Harris. This is a man who has no actual policy prescriptions, no moral guiding principles or foundational worldview. When you ask him about abortion, he has a new answer every single day. When you ask him about healthcare, he has concepts of a plan. When you ask him about Ukraine or Iran or anything anything regarding foreign policy, he says, I can't say it out in public. I'm giving away secrets if I say it out in public. He genuinely has no plans, and somehow he's made it this far in American politics, which I think is an indictment on the American people. Here's Donald Trump being pressed on tariffs a little bit more. Remember, Maria Bartiromo is complicit in all of this. The people at Fox News are complicit in all of this, but every once in a while, they do kind of push back on his terrible ideas.
The criticism, and the Journal has done this as well, that if you do put something like a 200% tariff on a product, that it's only going to mean higher prices for consumers.
It's not. No, it doesn't mean that.
It's got to be passed on somehow.
No. All I'm doing is saying, I'll put 200 or 500. I don't care.
This is rough. This dude can barely speak.
I'll put a number where they can't sell one car into the United. I don't want them to sell the car because I don't want them hurting our car companies. We're going to have a lot of companies moving into the United States. When I use 200, I'm using it as a number. I don't want their car. They will not be able to sell cars. I'm not going to let them build a factory right across the border.
It's just incoherent nonsense. He said, when I'm using 200, I'm just using it as a number. So he's essentially saying it's a figure of speech. Why would we take any of your policies seriously if you're admitting you're just throwing numbers out? Also, I want to replay this moment where Trump kind of starts squirming. He can't really answer the question in a coherent way, so he starts going, no, and then he stumbles over himself. Listen.
Higher prices for consumers.
It's not. No, it doesn't mean that.
It's got to be passed on somehow.
No. All I'm doing is saying, I'll put 200.
All I'm saying is saying this dude is losing it. He's lost his spark entirely. And here is Donald Trump saying that it's just a figure of speech when he says that he wants to put 200% tariffs on John Deere, for example. So if your policies are all just a figure of speech, when do we ever take you seriously? I don't.
The thinking is the threat of a 200% tariff will stop them from taking the car. So you won't actually have to do it, so you're not going to actually push prices higher.
I never, until now, I said 200. I'm using that just as a figure.
But you say 200 a lot.
Oh, I'll say 100, 200, I'll say 500. I don't care. They're not going to bring cars into this country from Mexico and destroy what car companies we have left. But
so he admitted it was a figure of speech right there, and that is something that really annoys me with Trump supporters. They always say something to the effect of, don't take him literally, just take him seriously, or something like that, meaning that everything he says is sarcasm, but he actually has serious ideas deep down. It is total nonsense. I also had a Trump supporter one time tell me that yes, while Donald Trump sounds like a dumbass while he's speaking, he just isn't afraid to say what's in his mind. And I asked them, wait a minute, so you're telling me that he's a dumbass in his mind too, because that's how it comes out when he speaks? I don't know. Totally incoherent worldviews. Here's Trump being asked about polling with Gallup.
Polling says only 57% of Americans are very or somewhat confident that their votes this year will be accurately cast and counted.
Right, probably
the percentage who say they are not at all confident in the vote is now 19%. It was 6% in 2008.
I don't feel confident. When you have mail-in voting, Jimmy Carter had a commission on it. Nobody does mail-in voting. Now, you look at other countries, France, they go to paper ballots. France had it, and they had a lot of problems.
But you don't want to discourage people from mail-in voting.
No, I don't. Look, we have to win the election, then we have to really fix this whole thing, because you need borders. I built 571 miles of wall, and they sold the wall for 5 cents on the dollar. You know, it's very expensive.
Make no mistake, this is Donald Trump laying the groundwork for the big lie, part 2. He knows that this election will be secure. People around him have told him this election will be secure, and the last election was, and he continues to double, triple down on these lies when he himself has used mail-in voting in the past. He knows it's secure. We were at the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, and there were people walking around with clipboards, and they signed you up to do mail-in voting. They signed you up for different types of voting that Donald Trump discourages. I am not lying. We were trying to get an interview with these people, but they were volunteers for the campaign, so they couldn't talk to us. But they were going around signing people up to do mail-in voting, which I thought was hilariously ironic, especially considering the fact that Donald Trump has waged war on mail-in voting over the past few years. Here's Trump telling Maria Bartiromo about the bigger problem in America is sick people. I don't even...
Let's remember, you've got 50,000 Chinese nationals in this country in the last couple of years. Yeah. You have people on the terrorist watch list, 350 in the last couple of years. You got, like you said, 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists. Right. What are you expecting? Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful election day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping.
Holy shit, this dude can barely even speak. This dude can barely even speak. And I know that people get mad when I pause it and replay it, but let me replay this portion right here. He just slurred his way through a sentence. He mumbled like me when I was a teenager in a bad mood.
1,000 rapists.
Right.
What are you expecting? Joe Biden said he doesn't think it's going to be a peaceful election day.
Well, he doesn't have any idea what's happening in all fairness. He spends most of his day sleeping. I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let...
What is he talking about here? So I heard him string together radical left, sick people need to be taken care of by the National Guard, if necessary, on election day. I genuinely don't know what he's saying, and he can barely even speak in the process. Is he calling for a military coup? And I want to show you this clip of Kristen Welker pressing Mike Johnson on whether or not he will certify the election results. This is an important clip. It's a must-watch.
So here now, can you say, if Donald Trump does not win, do you commit to certifying the election results?
Kristen, I'm a constitutional law attorney. I've devoted my life, and demonstrated every day that I will uphold the Constitution. We are going to do our job in Congress. A free and fair and legal election will be certified, and that is our hope and prayer across the board. Of course I'm going to follow the Constitution. I'm going to follow...
What a very weird, vague answer. Number one, he says, of course I'm going to follow the Constitution. That is not as obvious as you make it when you refuse to do that in 2020. You actually voted with Donald Trump. You voted for the overturning of the election results. And also, he uses this slippery political doublespeak by saying, of course we're going to certify a free and fair election. But who determines whether the election is free and fair? Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump, or the courts in 2020 that said the election was fair? I'm going to take a guess that they're not going to go with what the courts say. They're not going to go with what someone like Jack Smith says or what the DOJ says. They're going to go with what Rudy Giuliani says. But let's finish this clip.
Follow the law. That's my job. It's my duty. I took an oath to do that, and I will fulfill my oath.
Regardless of who wins, you'll certify the results.
Regardless, of course, yes, if the election is free and fair and legal, and we pray and hope that it is.
He did it again. He did it again. That's like the slippery gotcha. And look at Kristen Welker's face. Does she realize it too? What's going on?
A lot of work being done to make sure that's true. I think this one's going to be so large there'll be no question. I think Donald J. Trump is your next president, and that can't happen soon enough.
When people hear you say, if it is free and fair, does that not undermine people's confidence in the election results, Mr. Speaker?
No, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't, because what I'm saying there is what the Constitution provides, what the Supreme Court has affirmed time after time, what history has affirmed. Listen, Democrats have objected to slates of electors in every single election this century when a Republican president has won.
Not true. That is not true.
Single time.
And yet they all conceded.
Out there.
And yet they've conceded. Former President Trump has yet to concede in 2020.
That's the point.
Not only have Democrats always conceded, but the analogy that he drew isn't even true. Democrats did not create 7 slates of fake electors and have people forge their signatures.
No, the point is the process works. We have the peaceful transfer of power. We did in 2020. We will in 2024. Everybody can sigh and take a deep breath. Our system is going to work. We have the greatest system in the history of the world because we live in the greatest country in the world.
If we have the greatest system in the history of the world, then why does Mike Johnson and why do Donald Trump and the people around him constantly undermine this system and say that it is incredibly, incredibly rigged? I want to show you this clip of Donald Trump referring to people like Adam Schiff as the enemy from within. I mean, this is some wild rhetoric to be using.
Guard against the bureaucrats undermining you.
Well, they're going to undermine. Well, I always say, so we have 2 enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries, because if you have a smart president, he can handle them pretty easily. I got along great with all. I handled them. But the thing that's tougher to handle are these lunatics that we have inside, like Adam Schiff, Adam Shifty Schiff. Think of this guy's going to be a senator. He's running.
Man, leave a like on this video if you guys cannot wait for Speaker of the House Jeffries. That is going to be great. I'm so sick of all of the shenanigans in Congress with Mike Johnson and Donald Trump. But it's funny that Donald Trump refers to the enemy from within, which are the Democrats, and the enemy from without, which you'd think would be Russia and China, but I'm pretty sure he's talking about our liberal allies, probably places like Canada or Mexico. I mean, he genuinely thinks that all of our allies are our enemies. All of our enemies are our allies. He cozies up to Putin while putting down Trudeau.
Against a guy that doesn't understand politics at all, Garvey. But he was a good baseball player. But he doesn't understand politics at all. Adam Shifty Schiff, who's a total sleazebag, is going to become a senator. But I call him the enemy.
Say it with me. Every accusation is a confession. When he says that Shifty Schiff is a total sleazebag, but then Donald Trump surrounds himself with people like Roger Stone, people like Rudy Giuliani, Steve Bannon. If you looked up the word sleazebag, I think Steve Bannon would pop up next to Roger Stone. Either way, if you guys made it to the end of this longer video, I absolutely love you. Let me know in the comment section below if you like these longer morning breakdowns where I break down the morning of politics in a 30-minute video. It's more like a podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you're subscribed, drop some blue hearts. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out.